Yeah, I mean, we've let all of our members of staff know, like, if a project comes in and it's influencer based, we want it to go via Go because we trust you guys.
Oh God, it's been a long day, but welcome to the Goat Pod with David Speed and Adam Brazier, co-founders of Graffiti Life and the Creative Rebels podcast.
Wow, we're just live, just like that.
Well, it's easy as that, right? It's easy as that. Got to turn it on. The lights are on because it gets dark. We had a real problem a few weeks ago because in that cusp of time when you can start recording at 6 o'clock and it's light, and then by 7 o'clock it's dark. All sorts of lighting issues from the man behind the camera.
Yeah, so we're fortunate, like in our studio, we can completely block out the windows so we can control all the lighting.
So that's smart.
Everything's just the same all the time.
Well, we've got the lovely backdrop of London.
Yeah. We don't have that. We've got the view of Box Park in Shoreditch.
Oh, that's nice. But the problem comes with the lighting that comes with it. And that at September time, not so ideal. Now it's great because we can set it up from the start, and in the summer it's fantastic. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks.
No, happy to be here. We're big fans of what you guys are doing. Thanks. Obviously, I've been here and spoken to you guys before. I did a little lunch and learn with you guys,
and I feel like I've been here just from watching your vlogs.
Yeah, we get that a lot, which is pretty nuts. But yeah, you guys are onto something amazing as well. Let's talk about the podcast first and foremost. I think that's kind of what you guys are most passionate about right now.
Yeah.
How did it come to be? It's this year it started.
Yeah, so it came to be because we just started to get lots of questions.
Yeah. When I was
by what means?
But we get a lot of emails and a lot of DMs from sort of creatives who have seen that we've done a thing and they're like, how did you do that thing?
Yeah.
And when I was studying, part of my course was to contact artists that are working and making a living and ask them questions. And I did that for my course, and like hardly anyone ever got back. So I always took the responsibility of because every student wants to do a project on graffiti. So we get a lot of those kind of emails, but a lot of also people being like, I guess entrepreneurship's kind of been hot for the past couple of years, and people seeing like, oh, you have your own business and you've been going for 9 years and you're successful and you've got a staff of 12 and you've got an office and all of this sort of stuff. So people were kind of asking questions about how we did it. So we, again, kept on writing back, and then we were getting asked to do a lot of like university talks and things like that. And we just thought, you can reach 30 people in the room when you're speaking, or you can put it on the internet and then potentially reach thousands. And I think for both of us and for our business partner, Yona, we really enjoy helping people. And especially when you like talk to a student at the end of an event and you just say something and you just see the light bulb go on in their head and they're just like, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, especially when you start to see the same questions appearing all the time as well. Like you'll do lots of talks at events and people come up and everyone's struggling with the same things.
Yeah, of course.
So it's like, well, how can we do this at scale? And that's when we decided like the podcast format is very relevant at the moment. It's really picking up traction with the amount of listeners on there. So it's like, well, if we want to hit people who want to listen to the advice that we've got to give, let's do that at scale. And that's where we started with the podcast.
Nice. And you touched on something really interesting, like the glamorization or the excitement around being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that is? And why do you think it's been massively pushed in the last, I'd say, 2 years, 3 years, where everybody wants to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think it's Instagram. I think people can go on Instagram, look at people who are living lives that they aren't having and think, oh, well, I want that. And there's lots of entrepreneurs out there now who are basically saying like, well, look, this is what I did. You can go and become that. And they're not showing how hard the way actual work is to get there. So they're kind of glamorizing the way that
Give them a result.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, go and work for yourself and you're going to drive a Maserati. So you'll see like things pop up on YouTube of people driving stupid cars and like living in mansions and stuff. And they're like, well, I want that. And they're telling me that it's easy. So let's try and do that. And I also think with the way the internet's gone, and we talk about a lot in the podcast, how in today's society, no matter what you're into, no matter what you want to do, you can make a full-time living doing that because you've got the whole world at your fingertips.
But people just don't understand that it will be an actual graft to get there.
Yeah.
I think
people are scared of that as well.
Yeah, I think people are frustrated, and they look at maybe their family or their parents or their grandparents who toiled and worked their fingers to the bone and then retired and got given a gold watch. And I think that there's sort of I mean, I certainly saw my parents do exactly that. And then when you're presented with the choice of, that doesn't have to be you. Like, maybe you could do something different. Maybe you could do something yourself, and you could be your own boss, and you could make your own living. And maybe, I mean, me and Adam talk about it all the time. In the beginning, when we first started, our first business is called Graffiti Life. And when we first started that 9 years ago, we were told by everyone that we were absolutely crazy. Parents, family, loved ones, people on the street, anyone that we'd meet
anyone
would
who
tell
was
us,
sensible, right?
Yeah, anyone who was sensible would tell us, like, this is a really bad idea. It doesn't exist as a career. It's not a valid path to follow. And we watched all of our friends go into safe careers, and all of a sudden they're being compensated immediately, and we are certainly not. And so we're surviving on the bare basics. And I had to move back in with my mum, and Adam's girlfriend paid his rent for like 6 months straight because he couldn't afford it. Yep. And so we're in this situation where we're seeing everyone else kind of bring in all of this cash, and we're not even able to buy a new pair of trainers. It's like, it was a bit depressing, especially when you're in your 20s and kind of you want to be having fun, and seeing, like, not being able to go out with your friends. Everyone's going out on a Friday night and you're like, I just can't afford it because every single penny is going into this business. And then everyone's telling you you're crazy. But now people see the results, and they see the chapter 20 rather than the chapter 1, and they see that, 9 years in, you've got this business, you're working for all these brands, and they think, that sounds cool, I want to do that. So it's definitely there for you if you want to put the work in. And even now, me and Adam are still not earning what our friends who at that time went into the safe jobs, they're now on mega salaries because they've been working out their way up the ladders for the past 9 years. But when it comes to happiness, I think me and Ad are so happy in what we're doing.
We're significantly happier. Like, their wages have grown every year, and our wages have grown too, but our happiness has grown and theirs has just decreased. Like, most of my friends are now miserable in what they do day to day, which is a real shame. But they convince themselves, and my brother's the same. He works in a finance company and he doesn't enjoy his day to day, but he convinces himself that for 4 weeks of the year, I'll have a really good holiday and I'll live for that. So, but for me, that's not what life's about. I want to live for 52 weeks of the year, not just for 4. And I think that's what we really like to try and push, is like, you don't have to live for those 4 weeks a year. You can do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I talked to, in the very early days of the podcast, maybe like 2 years ago, you're being told to move your hat back.
Yeah, well,
he told me to let him know if it was pointing off.
It's a new hat and it hasn't quite fit in yet. So if it goes off,
you're wearing it in. You're wearing it in.
Yeah.
No, I talked in the very early days of the podcast. I talked to these 2 guys who were starting a business. There was 2 of them, I asked them that specific question, like, what are you actually trying to get out of running a business? Is it money? Is it growth? Is it like self-fulfillment? Is it just general happiness day to day? And that was their answer. They wanted day-to-day happiness, and said, but it was so difficult to measure. All our friends can measure their success based on their salaries. And I went, well, why don't you just write down a score out of 100 every single day anonymously, and at the end of the week you both present it to each other, and then you work out actually where you are. And if you ever drop below a 75, then you should be worried, because that's all you're doing it for, and you still can't get past a 75 out of 100.
It's so smart.
They did it for a year, and they realised actually that was a really good way of actually looking back and going, actually, fucking hell, our average is 88. And if we were to give that same scorecard to any of our mates, they'd be like 40, 50. Like 50% happy in a job in most people's life is pretty fucking high.
Yeah. And when you think that is the majority of your life as well, that means your whole life is 50% happiness, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost feel bad now sometimes when you'll meet up with an old friend and they'll be like, oh, like, how are you? And you go, yeah, wicked. We're just working on this project for Nike and it's really exciting. We're going to be doing this, this, and this. And then you go, how are you? And they go, yeah, same old. I'm still in that job. And I don't really share my wins with my friends anymore, because sometimes I feel bad for saying it. Which is awful, really. But I mean, we chose the life we chose, and that's what it is.
And that's all about the purpose of the podcast, right? You're trying to push forward that you can be happy in lots of different ways, and you can choose your own path. Like, why did you choose that as the focus of the podcast? I think it's a nice gap in the market.
I don't think we purposely chose it. I think it it was just what we wanted to talk about. It's the questions that we were getting asked previously about, well, how do you do this as a full-time career? Because these people are looking to do that. And we were just telling our advice and what our experiences were. So I think when it very first started, it was like, we're doing it to help the people who are listening to it, to help them get into these positions. And then when we actually broke that down of like, well, what does that mean? Then it's like, okay, well, that actually means that people want to be happy in what they do. And it kind of found us at the same time we found it.
Yeah, it's definitely evolved, hasn't it? I think for me, I really wanted to interview creative people. In terms of like a business sense, I wanted an excuse to, like, for example, we've got Bruce Daisley from Twitter coming on the show in a couple of weeks. Like,
he's fantastic.
Yeah, he's amazing. But like, if I just contact him out of the blue and go, oh, can I have a 1 hour conversation with you, please? It's like, no, you can't. But the podcast gives us an excuse to be in the room with those people. So I do always say to people, in terms of like for business, a podcast is such a great networking tool. You like by the end of a full hour conversation, and I mean, we were discussing earlier, like more than once we've had guests reduced to tears. We're talking about emotional things. We're talking about their lives.
Despite your whole thing being about happiness.
But sometimes it's tears of joy, dude. So it's all good. But I mean, literally, you develop a bond over.
No, of course.
Because when do you have a 1 hour conversation with someone? Like,
about
it's so
something
rare.
That's, especially the first meeting where you talk about something so deep and go back into their sort of past, rather than talk about the potential of the future or what you're doing, or you're selling yourself, and you're just not doing that on a podcast.
Because there's no phones, there's just us and that person locked in a room, and it's incredible. And for us as a learning tool as well, we get to ask the questions, like if we're worried about something in our business, like we've got
the best people in the world at those things. It's great.
That's nice. I mean, I've been podcasting for a long time. And yeah, I've always loved that element of it. And being the reason that I got into sports journalism in the early days is because I wanted to talk to sports journalists, and it was a great way for me to do it. So yeah, I completely get that. And yeah, you open yourself up to some amazing people, and sometimes you end up not looking at the clock, and it's an hour and a half, and 2 hours, and it flies by, and that conversation is really, really easy. So what's been the plan with the podcast? So, I know lots of the guests have been influencers or well-known people. Then you've also mixed that in with other people that I think you're trying to share their stories.
So to grow a podcast is really, really hard because there's no organic reach within the iTunes ecosystem unless you get shown in like the new noteworthy section, or you rank highly in one of the kind of sections that are on there. You can't really get found. So yeah, we use influencer marketing as kind of a tool, like getting on people with big followings that could help put our message out there. But then we also tie that in with people we just think are really interesting. I think our whole aim is like audience first. Like, what would the audience want to hear from this? Because sometimes we'll be in conversations and we'll be like, oh, this is really interesting, but we're going too far away from what the audience actually want to hear.
It's interesting for you.
Yeah.
You're getting, so like, it comes back to you're getting something out of it. But maybe the audience aren't.
Exactly. So we always have to kind of loop it back to exactly what the audience want to hear.
And how do you manage the roles on the podcast between the two of you? Because it's you two, just you two.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's unspoken, and it's the same when we paint walls together. I mean, it always has been. People often find it funny when they watch us paint because we just work organically, and it's not. We don't really have to say, I'm going to be here doing this bit, you're over there doing that bit. We just sort of like flow together. And it's exactly the same on the show. I like, we're like brothers. We've been in the same business for 9 years, and just we know each other so well. I know when he's about to speak, so I can step back. He knows when I'm about to speak, which is most of the time. But like, we know each other so well that works really well. I book a lot of the guests, but Adam has got like such a network through taking photos that he books a lot of guests through that as well. And just I think the growth of it has been so kind of addictive, of just seeing it explode. So we launched at number 1 on the iTunes business chart. And then since then... Who
was your first guest?
First guest was Emma Gannon. Okay. But we released 4 episodes in the beginning so that people had stuff to binge through. And it was actually Zach and Jay that pushed us over the edge. So on launch day, we've released this podcast, like adds up at 5 o'clock in the morning, making sure it all goes live. It goes out to the world, and then we watch it gradually, like you're refreshing every 2 minutes to watch it go up the charts. Then it got to about probably like 4 o'clock, and we were just stuck at number 3. And ahead of us was NPR and the Tim Ferriss Show.
Nice.
And we were like, There's no way we're overtaking them. And the way, I mean, maybe if you explain how the iTunes algorithm works.
Yeah, so the iTunes algorithm is really sensitive to new podcasts. So when you first put something on there, that's your best chance ever to go to number one. So whereas Tim Ferriss might get 100,000 downloads per episode, if you're a new podcast and get 700, you can top that in the charts because it really kind of gives chance to like new stuff. Which is a great way because it's like at least that gives it a chance to get found because there's no organic reach or organic kind of search anywhere else. So yes.
So yeah, we worked out that it was going to be, what was it, 800 listens?
Yeah, so I kind of did it. I'm an absolute maths geek and I just love
that.
Yeah, so I worked out, so from all the people that had been on the show who we'd recorded with previously, all the people who I'd done photo shoots with the year before, we added up all of their followers, and I think it came to about 1.5 million as a collective of these people would definitely share it. We had like other people who might share it, but it was a bit unsure. Okay, well, these people would definitely share it, and their combined following is 1.5 million. And then I kind of broke that down to, okay, well, say if they're going to post it on their stories, because they probably won't post it on their feed, that might get seen by, say, 10 to 8% of their audience. And then what percentage of those people actually use iTunes? So that's 50%. In terms of like Apple Android split, then what percentage of people actually listen to podcasts, and broke it down. My estimate was from 1.5 million, we would get 650 listens, and I think we actually got about 750. So it's pretty accurate in the way that I actually broke it down, just understanding like click-through rates and stuff like that.
But yeah, it was actually that was the point where we got to number one, was when we hit that 750 listens, and everyone had shared it. Apart from bloody Zach Alsop wasn't out of bed yet. Yeah. So we messaged him and we were like, dude, can you give this a push? And he was like, oh shit, yeah, sorry. He shared it. And because people who follow Zach and Joe, I know you've had them on your show, like their followers are pretty fanatic. Yes. So when Zach says, I need you guys to help us get this to number one, there was just like this
is
surge.
Currently at number two, let's beat just to win to get to number one. And we just got this extra little boost. And this was probably about, so I'd woken up at, I think 4:30 was when I set my alarm for to check it had all gone live and stuff. And I was on my phone consistently until about 7 p.m. when I finally went home. And was just absolutely exhausted. I basically had to have my phone plugged in because it was just draining so quickly because I was just on it so much. Messaging every single person I knew, every single influencer that we'd had on, like we'd made kind of assets to send them all to make it as easy for them to share as possible.
I'm like, Mum, you've got to download this podcast. She's like, what's a podcast? I'm like, never mind.
Don't worry about that. It's this link, just click it.
And I think like we'd got to number 2 by this point, and we were like, well, Tim Ferriss is above us. Like, we've got no one else to share it now. Yeah. But Zach had just kind of like put out to his people, and I was on the train on the way home and just sat down at Shoreditch High Street, refreshed, and we were at number 1, and I was just like, fuck.
Yeah, nice. No, that feeling is just so
yeah,
good.
it was just absolute elation.
But it helped us grow so much, because from there we then got featured on New and Noteworthy.
Yep.
And then when you're contacting your guests after that point, it's like we launched at number 1 on the business podcast charts, and then people are like, well, it must be a good show then. Yeah. So you're more likely to get guests, and then after doing it for sort of a couple of months, and you've got this like really, really good roster of just incredible, interesting people, and a lot of people that people have heard of, then it just made getting guests so much easier, and it's just grown from there.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that with the business?
Well, the podcast has actually brought in quite a lot of money.
How's it done that?
Well, it wasn't the plan to, because for us, we thought it'd be a great marketing tool, and it'd be good for people to find out who we are and then sort of dig a little deeper. So one thing we were really cognizant of is we want people. So obviously, Reggie Yates was our last episode, done huge numbers because everyone knows Reggie Yates, but what we try and do as well is we want them to stay. So we want them to kind of start to trust us. So gradually, as the episodes grew and as we grew more confident, we started building ourselves as personalities. Our intros went from like 3 minutes of, we've got a guest coming up, they're going to be great, you'll really enjoy it, here's the episode, to then us actually starting to ask our audience, starting to answer our audience's questions, to get a bit more about like what we were doing with our time and get that across more, so that people actually fell in love with the show, not just the guests. So that really helped.
Why don't you video it?
We do now.
Do.
Yeah, so for the past couple of months.
Started, yeah.
I think our very first recording, I had a camera set up, and it was a Sony, and we had a 30-minute record limit, and we didn't have anyone to help us.
That's why he's running around the back.
Yeah, although now I've realised if it's anything before the latest models, you can hack the firmware and get infinite runtime on them, which is great because I've got 3. One's a newer, one's a 30-minute, but the other ones keep going on forever.
Allegedly.
But yeah, they keep going on forever. What were we talking about?
Talking about why?
How the podcast made money.
Yeah, how does it make money?
Because we've always kind of said we don't want ads on there at like the start as just like a random intro.
Who'd you host with?
Libsyn.
Okay. Yeah.
I just did a lot of research, and they seemed like a pretty good one to go with. And I think the UI on all of them is pretty awful. So it's like just upload it. It's a storage system. It's fine. But
no ads.
Yeah, so we don't. So we wouldn't have ads at the start. We got lots of messages, especially when we hit new noteworthy, of people trying to sponsor us and run ads at the start. But we would always kind of said like we would never partner with anyone who wasn't really completely aligned with who we were. And then off the back of the launch, Apple got in contact and said like, great new podcast. We love what you're doing. We love what it's about. Can you come and do 4 live sessions in the Apple stores? So they paid us to do those. We got some great guests for those. We actually, Reggie Yates was one of our guests for that as well.
Fantastic.
We did one with Alice Living, Sarah Tasker, and Harris Newcomb. So we had a really good lineup for those. And they were paid, so that brought in a bit of money. And then Adobe got in contact by 2 completely separate departments, 2 completely different things, to do some. So we've done some live talks at universities. We've done a short podcast series that's kind of about mental health and creativity and how they should both be considered. But yeah, it's kind of bringing in those kind of deals at the moment.
So like speaking gigs has been huge, and then through doing that as well. So we've gone and like done talks at like Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, and we're now potentially working with them on a mural project. So
it's a lead source.
Yeah.
What's the schedule like? How does it look for you, and what's the edit time like? What's the process? People listening to this now, like, how many podcasts how many podcasts should they be releasing a week? How easy is it to edit a podcast? Like, we obviously do our own, but like starting from the ground as you guys did in January, like without having done it before. So your first go at it.
So I'm a massive nerd. So if I get into something, I'll get really into it and learn everything about it. So did that with audio. Basically, I'd never done anything with audio before. Did some research. There's a guy who I know in New York who's got a podcast, so kind of took his advice on mics.
What did you buy?
Some Rode NT USB, so you can go straight into my laptop.
Yeah, nice.
Because I'm guessing you've got a Zoom H6.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
These. But I just need something that's a bit more just all in one. So it's like if you can run into my laptop, they're really portable. Because when we first started, we didn't know if we'd be running around different people to do them or if they'd come into the studio. So that made it easy. Then it had good ratings in terms of like the quality and stuff. And then when we recorded the first ones, I was like, oh, this audio doesn't sound amazing. Why is that? And then kind of started to learn about acoustics, how the post-production of the audio and how you kind of tweak that to make it really sound nice, how to remove echo, how to remove mic bleed, all these different things that I'd never considered. But I've got the kind of mind that if there's ever a problem, Google is your answer. Yeah. No matter what you need to learn, it's on Google. You don't need to pay for any courses. Everything you need to learn is on Google.
I agree with that.
So yeah, just Googled it and just found out how to do it. And then we got to a stage where I was like, I'm pretty happy with this audio. And
what are you editing on?
There's some software called Reaper, which one of our members of staff, Becky, one of her good friends, set up podcasts for the BBC. Okay. And he came in to have a chat with us before we launched, just giving us a little bit of advice. And he said, I recommend using this Reaper software. It's free to download. You can kind of evaluate it forever, or it's only like £70 to buy, and it's got loads of free plugins. So I use that, and I recommend that everyone does use that because it's really easy to record straight into. You can edit everything through there as well. It's got 1 million plugins that are really, really good. And it's kind of so
there's a few things I think are important for people if they are thinking of starting out a podcast. Firstly is there's the worry of that podcasters reached peak and that there shouldn't be any more podcasts because there's too many. There was recently a New York Times article that said podcasts that they've had their day and they're done. I think that is absolute nonsense. I think when you look at the figures, like we're in the infancy of podcasting, and I think now is a great time to get in. Like, sure, 10 years ago is a better time to get in, but like now is the best time. But do not underestimate the amount of work that goes into it. Because I'm sure you're aware of the stat that the average podcast lasts 7 episodes. And that's so human when you look at it. It's like, that's human behavior. We get really excited about something and we're like, yeah, this is going to be amazing. Go, go, go. I'm going to have the best podcast in the world. And then by the time you have 7 episodes and then you realize not many people are listening, your mum and maybe 2 other people are listening to it, then it's just work after that. And then people give up. And I think the editing takes a considerable amount of time, especially in the beginning when you're watching YouTube videos and you've got YouTube on this screen and then you've got your software here and you're going between the two trying to and I mean, so now luckily, like, because it has brought in a bit of money, we outsource our editing now, which takes like frees up
so
our
much
time,
of my time,
which is great.
How long did the edit used to take?
When I first started, it was probably about a day an episode, just to go through, because we'd cut out all the ums and ahs.
Oh, really?
So do everything, so it was like as good as possible. So we'd go through, cut all the ums and ahs, any bits that just didn't sound right, tweak any audio levels and stuff going through, so just try and make it as perfect as we could. And we still do that now. So when I pass it over to the editor, I also think whenever you start anything, you should fully learn how to do it yourself.
Yes, then you can give people other...
Exactly, you can tell them what you want to do, exactly how you want it, and then you can, if the editor falls ill, you can still do it yourself. There's no like relying on someone else to have to do it all the time if you need to get something out really quickly. Like, we had an episode that was about to go live and then the guest said, actually this can't go live, and pulled it. And so we were like, shit, we've only got another one in the bank and it's got 2 days till it has to launch. So I was like, well, luckily I know how to do it all, so I just went and edited it myself and we've got launched on a Friday. So that was completely fine.
And you release 1 episode a week?
So we started as one every Friday. So we launched with 4 episodes, and then we've just done 1 every Friday ever since. And we'll do 1 every Friday for the next however many years until people stop listening. But because we started to do these intros that were more of us talking, I had a few people who I'd talk to and be like, oh, I only actually listen to the intros because there's just such compacted like advice in this like little chunk of time. I love that. I don't want to listen to the interviews. I just love you guys talking because it's so inspirational. I'm getting so much from it, so much like practical advice. And so we're like, okay, and people were just asking for more content because they consuming it.
Yeah, it's so funny when like we're doing this completely for free. We don't even have ads. Like we could have sold ads on it like from the beginning, and like you get DMs from people saying, oh, when are you going to do more episodes? And you're like, dude, this is free. Like, this takes time. We've got 4 businesses to run. Like what?
So we started to do a separate kind of mini-series called Creative Thinking, which is...
running on the same feed?
On exactly the same feed, yeah. So they'll go as bonus episodes. And then on YouTube, we'll split. So on a Wednesday, we'll generally do a post that goes up that's got three audience questions on that we'll answer, and then we'll split those up into different bits of content for YouTube. So each question can be 1 for YouTube, each question can be 3 for LinkedIn. It's just a way to kind of get that content and just expand it. And when it comes to answering questions as well, it doesn't actually take that much of our time to sit and do it because we don't have to get a guest in. It's just like, well, we just go in the studio, get some questions up, and then go through and answer them.
What has been fun though is sometimes we do questions with a guest as well, which is really cool. So we did an episode with Camilla Ainsworth, who was runner-up on The Apprentice, and then she was in town because she lives up north. She was in town. She was like, "Oh, hey, what are you guys doing?" We were like, "Well, come in and we'll just do your audience, our audience, and we'll just do a Q&A back and forth." And it worked super well. So now sometimes we'll do them with guests. Sometimes it will just be me and Ad. We've done one. It's not aired yet, but we've done one with our business partner Yona. So it's just there's no kind of set format of it. We'll just do it as and when.
Yeah. And what are you looking to achieve from it? Like, what's the goal? Like, you're obviously growing week on week. You know, you're enjoying it, which is the main thing. And
I almost don't have a goal. It's just, I just want to keep doing this. I just want to help as many people as possible.
That's
I think,
it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like more people that listen to it, more people are going to potentially have a job and a life that they enjoy. And more we can do it, more we can scale it, more people can hear about it, more people's lives are impacting. And I think that's what the goal is, to just make as many people be happy and fulfilled in their jobs.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, like I love that as well. But I think there's this beautiful kind of self-serving circle of when you help as many people as possible, the impacts to you are incredible. So the opportunities that have opened for me and Ad through doing this podcast have just been ridiculous. So in like a selfish sense, like I want to grow the podcast as huge as possible because I know that means so many more opportunities for us. So you get it's so great because it's like you get the beautiful feedback of literally people sending you DMs saying, you've changed my life. I mean, that's literally, I mean, it sounds like big-headed to say it, but like those are literally the words that people have sent to us. You have changed my life.
Really, really regularly as well. And people have quit their jobs from listening to the show. People have gone to flexible working, can shorten down their hours so they can go and pursue their passion on like their spare day. And I think when we started it, we wanted to help people, but we didn't realize how significant an impact it would actually have.
Or how addictive it would be for us as well. Yeah.
And what bit do you find addictive? Is it the process? Is it the results? Like which bit are you addicted to? Because for me, when I was building websites and when I was building social media accounts, it was all about the analytics. That's what I cared about. I'm the same as you. I love numbers. Yeah. But is it the process and is it the conversations?
I think the conversations with amazing people, and the messages, the DMs that we get from people whose lives are changing. I think it's every time you see one of those, you're like, this is amazing. I want to keep doing that. I want to keep getting this feedback. It's almost like that keeps you going.
And what I love as well is the people that will never ever DM you. I love knowing that you're helping people because it's like,
I mean, we've the surface. The people that are actually DMing you fucking love it. Yeah. And there's other people out there. There's like 70% of people who fucking love it, but just don't have the balls to.
I love that. You. It's so cool.
Yeah, I love that as well. In terms of the other business, like where are you in that stage? Like you're 9 years in.
Yep.
You've grown an incredible love for podcasting, but you still got the day job.
Yes, we do. Yeah, so we have a tattoo studio on Curtin Road called Parlour Tattoo, which takes up a little bit of time, but it's not too much.
When did you launch that?
3 years ago. So 3 years ago in like April.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been going for about 3 years. We've got some incredible artists working out of there. So that's been really fun building that from the ground up, taking everything that we'd learned about marketing through running Graffiti Life, our first business, and just applying that to the studio. So got quite a decent following on Instagram. A lot of our work comes in through Instagram, and it's. So I used to tattoo before I was a graffiti artist. Well, at the same time as being a graffiti artist, I was kind of doing both, and you can't do both. Like I had to like pick one or the other, and so I went full board into painting walls. And I always missed the tattoo industry, and I always had this dream of doing a tattoo studio right, because I think it's done badly in so many places. So our studio is sort of like customer first. It's more of a boutique experience. Yeah, Turns out that
it's more like a nice hairdressers. So instead
that's
of being
how
like,
I imagine.
Yeah, instead of being like the schools, roses, rock music stereotype of what a tattoo studio is, it can be really intimidating, especially if it's like your first tattoo, like, or you just want something small on your wrist, for example. Like you'd go in and you say, "Oh, can I have this star here?" And they might kind of like laugh or snigger. Whereas ours, no
judgment. It's like, it's just a completely like open, nice space. And turns out when you build a space like that, 90% of our customers are female. We didn't design it like that, but it just turns out when you make a nice, comfortable space, and a lot of clients say like, "Oh, this is the studio that I was looking for, but I didn't know existed," which is great. So yeah, that's one of our businesses. We also have an out-of-home experiential company called All Over. We do a lot of experiential marketing and kind of stunts. And so recently we did a huge piece of 3D floor art in where was it? Covent Garden. In Covent Garden for Burt's Bees. And it did so well. I think it got featured in the Drum, and it was like featured in all of the press and stuff, which was really cool. And we did everything. We did the build, we did the installation. One of our project managers is also a gardener, so we built a full like kind of forest around the artwork. And our kind of phrase for that is artisan advertising. So we do a lot of advertising products, but everything's handmade, everything's handcrafted, because I feel like in this digital world, there's a space for that. I feel like people really respond to stuff that's made by hand.
Yeah. Well, we did a big project for Microsoft a few years ago, and a passerby, it was basically replicating one of their posters on a massive wall in Clerkenwell. A passerby took a photo on his phone, put on Reddit, and it got 2.2 million views in 2 days. And it's like, if that was a poster, that wouldn't have happened. So it's like the potential reach, because people really appreciate the art form and can share it online, is massive. So the actual value to an advertiser is it's massive.
Yeah, because I think in our industry, people talk a lot about impressions, and I get that it's important and like kind of bombarding people. But what we sort of feel is like we're creating lasting impressions, because people remember our murals, and like when you'll meet someone at a party and they'll be like, "Oh, did you paint that?" And it's like, yeah, because they remember.
And they'll
it.
get their phone out and they actually took a photo of it. So it's like the advertising that you painted, they actually took a photo of, and it's still in their phone 3 years later.
Yeah.
Which is mental.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I think so. I feel like we have a product that actually works, because I think it's so difficult nowadays because we've got so much choice. It's like if you actually make something that people do care about, and that comes through just us pouring ourselves into the creation of it. And then Graffiti Life is our first company that we formed in 2010, and we do lots of different stuff with that, and it's mostly done with spray paint. We have working for us some of like the best photorealistic artists on the planet, and so we can like replicate a photo. And we do a lot of people's offices, so we've painted offices for like even places like booking.com, Microsoft,
Deliveroo.
Deliveroo's offices. We did the whole of their interior. Warner Music. So yeah, we've painted some incredible offices, and we've been all over the world with it. We've painted in Dubai, we've painted in Vegas. We do a lot of live art as well at events and product launches and things like that. So we'll be creating artwork and people can just see it evolving in front of their eyes, which works really well.
Yeah, and then we also do team building and workshops as well. So we actually teach people how to use spray paint in like a 90-minute, 2-hour workshop, where the first half will be teaching them how to use a spray can, because that's generally the hardest part, is actually getting it to come out like you want it to. And then the second half, we'll split the teams up and do like battles. So we get different people, like teams competing against each other. They'll create team names and like just have like a really fun time with it. And it's so fun to do, because I think everyone's done like go-karting or wine tasting or paintballing or the generic things that team building generally does. But it's a really great way to get people actually to work as a team.
Yep.
And you find as well that quite often the people who are in the office are the shy ones really come out of their shell, because they're generally might be a bit arty, and they suddenly come to the forefront of this group. Whereas in a more physical scenario, you'd get more of the people who are quite outspoken normally would be the ones who are leading it. So yes, a really nice way.
I love it. It's my favourite thing that we do. So this is a bit of a weird story, but I was training to be a primary school teacher at one point, back when we were told that we were absolutely crazy and that painting on walls for a living would not be a career. I felt a lot of pressure of like, oh well, I suppose I'd better have a fallback thing. And my parents are foster carers. I've grown up in a house like always surrounded by kids, and because I'd always look after the younger ones, it's kind of been, it was always expected, like, well, he'll probably be a teacher, won't he? And I sort of felt that pressure of like, everyone expects me to be a teacher. So I started training to be a primary school teacher. And I actually realized within that system that I really wanted to help these kids. And I feel like I'm helping more people with the podcast now than I ever could within the school system. But by us doing our graffiti workshops, it's like the teacher in me comes out again. Nice. It's like my chance to actually like do a bit of teaching and be like, no, put that down. And it's really fun. And you find that because it's like we're working with corporates, we're working with like CEOs and stuff, and I'm telling them off, and you find that they're probably more naughty than a class of year 4s anyway. So,
of course. So what's it like managing all those different businesses? Because I think that's quite interesting. You've got 4 different businesses, if you count the podcast, right?
Yeah.
So what's it like managing those different disciplines? Because they're very different, but all have very much a creative core.
Yeah, so this is probably where our business partner, Yona, is the best person to talk to, because she's the one
she's
the rock.
She's the one who holds everything together, makes sure everything ticks over and keeps people in jobs, basically. We're the ones who do the crazy things that try and bring in new stuff. But yeah, Yona's the one who keeps our business together. And she's just an excellent people person. And I think that's the key. We've got a really, really strong team of people who are just fucking lovely. That they're so nice. We've got a really nice, tight-knit people who are all kind of a similar age. Everyone gets on. It's like a little family in our office. And I think that's where it really, really works well. And because, say, Graffiti Life All Over and the podcast are all based out of the same office, like our office is probably the size of this room. So you can talk to everyone at every point, and that works really well. And our tattoo studio is only a 5-minute walk around the corner. So actually, to manage them all, when a lot of them do the similar kind of stuff, it's achievable.
Yeah, and it's the people we have around us. We wouldn't have been able to do anything if we hadn't just been collaborating with amazing people, amazing artists, amazing project managers, and just we're nothing. If you take our team away from us, then we're just two idiots with a microphone, and that's basically it. But yeah, it's our people. I mean, when we first started, we had to wear every single hat. Yeah. Every wall that was painted was us. Every VAT return that was done was us. Like, everything was us. But as we've grown, we've sort of shared responsibilities, and yeah, without our team,
and things have had to really change as well. So like when we first started, it would basically be like me and David were out painting on every job, and then Yona would be doing the project management side of stuff. And it got to a stage where, because it was my responsibility to do like the SEO, the marketing, and the website, all the digital things, but I was out painting every day. So it got to a stage when I had a bit of a breakdown, because I was like, I can't do all of this. I can't be out painting every day and have these responsibilities of all these other things. So I was like, I'm just going to have to stop painting if these things are going to get done. So I barely paint now, and my role has completely changed over the years. And now I kind of work almost fully on the podcast, because that seems to be have real legs to it. And
whereas I've kind of written it into my contract that you will never stop me from painting. It's like, I think it's important. Like, Ad's fine to drop the painting. He's like, he'll come in when we need him, but it's not. Whereas for me, I need to get out there every now and then, and I need to just be shaking a can, and I need to be painting. So I
What's
make
it
sure.
about painting that really excites you, or is it a relaxing thing?
It is a relaxing thing. I think flow state is very real. We interviewed for our podcast this morning, actually, the best teacher in the world. And one point that she was talking about, because she's an art teacher, and we were sort of grilling her about art and saying what's the important thing about art and creativity? And she said, it gives you a chance to focus on something. And it's something both of us were like, oh yeah, we hadn't really considered that before. When I've got a mural to paint, I know that's going to be minimum a day. It's like 6 hours solidly working on one thing.
Yeah.
And that's quite beautiful. And I'll put podcasts in my ears or an audio book or something.
So you listen to stuff also?
Yeah, like all the time. I'm listening to podcasts like whenever I'm not doing something else. If I'm walking to work, if I'm doing the dishes, if I'm falling off to sleep, like always listening to podcasts. I listen to yours. And I think because it's learning, man. Like I get really energized. We both do. Like, we're always trying to learn, and just getting energized by listening to podcasts. But when I'm painting a mural, it's like, okay, I've got something that I'm trying to create, and you just switch off and you just get lost in the painting, and at the same time lost in whatever I'm listening to. And I love that time of I can't go anywhere, and this is what I'm doing now. Whereas if I'm at home, it's like
meditation, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Whereas like our modern lives is like, oh, am I going to go on Instagram, and then I'll come off, and then I'll go on Twitter, and then I'll go and see my friend, and then we'll watch telly, and then I'll play some Switch, or do you know what I mean? It's like there's nothing you sit down and do for 6 hours. Whereas like painting is like, okay, this is the time, and it's focus time.
Yeah, I have the same with like golf.
Yeah.
Or driving.
Yeah.
I think we all need something. We need like a creative outlet in our lives that's something that we can get lost in. And I mean, for you, it's photography.
Yeah. So for me, because it kind of got to a stage where everything that I had an interest in, we would just develop into a business, or it would become part of the business. So I needed something that, because I've just got that kind of brain, because it's like I'd start doing drawings, and then I'd be doing one a day, and then post them to Instagram, and I'm like, oh, I'm now in a thing, loads of people are liking this, and you just get stuck in this cycle. So I was like, I need something that I don't need to turn into a business. So started doing portrait photography, and it's very similar to the podcast in the way that you get to meet loads of amazing people all the time. If there's someone that I want to meet or get to know, I can just drop them a DM on Instagram, and most of the time they'll get back and say like, yes, I'd be up for that. Because I'll just say that I'll offer you a free shoot. And then it's like the podcast, you get to spend like an hour or two with someone, have a really deep kind of normal conversation, and then you've kind of made a friend at the end of it as well. But so then for me, it's like I've now got a hard drive full of thousands and thousands of photos that I can go and edit. So I can sit there and tweak away and just perfect something. And that's kind of now what I use as my creativity, I suppose.
And Adam never does anything by half as well. So his photography account is like absolutely killing it, and like you've shot like Bollywood stars with 12 million followers and like all of these influencers and stuff. So you're doing great with that.
Yeah, but it's so nice to have something that there's no pressure to earn anything from.
Creative output.
Yeah, it's so rewarding, because it's like some weeks I won't shoot at all, and other weeks I'm like, cool, I've got actually a free day now. I'll contact a modelling agency and be like, get 4 people in, shoot them all, and I've got another batch of like stuff to edit. And it's just, it's free, which is really nice to have. And I feel like everyone should have that in their life.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I try and channel it into things that take me away from my phone, which I think is exactly the same as the painting stuff and doing the photography, where you're in a studio with someone else. Like being on your phone for a 10-minute period is not the right thing to do. And golf is pretty much the same thing as that. Like, or driving is even more so that. Like, just put my phone away.
Yeah.
Don't even think about it.
I mean, because for you as well, like your phone is your job. I mean,
I could leave the office now for the next month, and it, other than the day-to-day interactions with people and the pitches and things like that, I could run the business off WhatsApp.
Isn't that incredible?
Which is mad.
Isn't that incredible?
But when I'm in Mexico, I can still run my part of the business via WhatsApp for 2 weeks. By connecting the right people. Like, I make a lot more group chats than I would if I wasn't here, but it doesn't make a difference. Like, annoying to them, because we're not all in that situation. But if I was in that situation, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But yeah, like if you'd have told me 6 years ago that I could all run my 120 person global business from my phone without need, I hardly use my laptop. You just don't need it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Insane.
So what are the next steps for you guys? What's new? You've got 4 businesses. You're doing all sorts of different things. You've lots of creative outputs in different ways. Obviously, the podcast is very important for you. But is there anything else on the horizon that you're looking at doing? Or
I think we had me and David sat down yesterday and had a bit of a meeting about the podcast, because it has been fitting and around work. So we generally try and record before work starts and then after work's finished. We've never really had like a set content strategy apart from releasing every Friday. So I think going forward, our plan is just to make that a lot more efficient and just get loads more content out of what we're actually producing.
Like snippets and cut downs.
Yeah. And because it's like we record these hour-long interviews that have loads of great clips from it, and David goes through and transcribes all of the good little quotes and stuff, and all of those.
What do you do with those?
Well, we generally, so at the moment we put out, on Friday when it launches, we'll put a cover photo of the person who it is, and then you can swipe across and see the video footage of them saying each of these quotes as a bit of a teaser into the episode.
On Instagram?
On Instagram, yeah.
At Rebels Create.
Yeah.
Nice plug.
But yeah, I think we just want to just get a lot more efficient with everything we're doing and just increase the quality. Like, we've just moved into a new podcast studio.
Is that inside the office?
So next door to our office is another unit that we've taken over a portion of that and converted it into a much bigger studio space that is properly lit. We've got like backlighting, we've got a bit more of a scene and set behind us. It feels a bit more like a set now, whereas before we were in a small little section of our office that I'd got some foam boards and put them to the walls to make it look a bit more appealing. But yeah, it's just, I think, like looking at the footage back.
It's like with everything we do, we're always like really careful. So in the beginning of the podcast, we started off just within our office, within a small space, made it look the best we could. But then when it was like, okay, this is a real thing now, then it's like, okay, well, let's invest back into it. It's bringing in quite a bit of money from these sort of brand partnerships. Let's invest that into getting a bigger space, making it look a little bit more professional, because now when we start putting out the YouTube videos and they have more of a studio feel to them, then I think you get taken a little bit more seriously, unfortunately, because it should just be the power of the content that drives it. But we all know that
there's a polish to it as well.
Yeah, right? The cosmetics of it are important to a degree. So so now it's gonna look nicer, but the content's gonna stay the same.
Well, I suppose it'll be better because we'll be better. Like, we started this with no interview experience and didn't really know what we were doing. And we've learned so much since then. We've learned what people's problems are, how we can help them. And I think we're just going to get better at being able to help other people as that grows as well. So, yeah, I think everything's just heading in a really positive direction. And I think with the podcast, it seems to be, because I think we're now like the biggest podcast for creatives. I think we were going through the other day, because we
in the UK.
Yeah, in the UK. Because there's no one really who's doing a similar thing at the scale that we're doing it, which is really exciting. So it's like, well, actually, we're getting known as like the kind of key person of influence in the creative world.
Yeah, that's wicked.
So if we can keep doing that, so when basically, I would love to get to a stage where when people think of the word creativity, they think of us. And if that happens, we get to that stage, then that opens up so many other possibilities for our other businesses, because then if anyone's got a creative brief, because all of our companies are creative, like they'll think of us and then they'll think, oh, well, we want to work with them because it's associated to...
Yeah, that was always our goal with the word influencers at the start. If you think of influencers, then you think of us.
Yeah.
And that was always what we wanted to do. Because you're right, as soon as you become synonymous with the word or with the practice, then you get briefs. Whether or not you win those briefs is down to the process you've got in the business, right? But if you even get sight of them, it's incredibly positive for your business.
Yeah, I mean, we've let all of our members of staff know, like, if a project comes in and it's influencer based, we want it to go via Go, because we trust you guys. And I mean, you, like, that's your business. And I think it's important to, I think there's this scarcity mindset within the creative industries of, oh, a job comes in, I better work out how to do that. And I think it's so much better to just be a family and just be like, well, our friends over here know how to do that properly. Let's give that to them. And then when something comes to them that they're a bit out of their depth in, they'll come to us. And it's
my ability to spray on walls is limited to none. Okay, great. So what about YouTube as a platform? Is that something you're really looking to push? That's obviously where you're going to create more content.
I think
in terms of video.
So for the podcast, because within the actual iTunes and Spotify, there's not much organic growth there. So I think, because I did a lot of SEO when we first started our business, and YouTube is basically Google for video. So I think we're getting quite heavy with kind of like targeting certain keywords and really trying to get our name out there on YouTube, because we know we can get found there. And once people find that, then they can hear about the podcast, listen to the podcast, and then they'll learn about our other businesses. And it's all just a big funnel. So I think, YouTube, I think, is where we're going to put a lot of effort in like the years coming.
What about
but
LinkedIn?
We're also very patient. And I think we're not expecting a huge growth overnight. I mean, we're not going to be running down Oxford Street in our pants or something. We're not going to be doing like viral videos. Like the content is the content, and our downloads are incredible through iTunes. And we're not trying to convert those listeners because they don't watch the video. So we know that YouTube is a whole other audience. So we know that just means consistent content over a period of time, not giving up, keep posting videos. We know that eventually we'll find our tribe. The people that need to find those videos will find them eventually. And we're not expecting overnight growth with it.
Talking to a lot of people on the podcast and from our own experiences as well, we've kind of found that 3 years is when things really start to happen. So if you constantly work at something consistently for 3 years, it's about when you hit that 3 year mark that really exciting things start to happen. So I think when we do anything, we're patient enough to know that, okay, well, I'm going to commit to this for 3 years, and then hopefully by the end of that 3 years, it will then turn into something.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're 208 episodes into our daily vlog. LinkedIn's our main platform, but YouTube is something that we really want to grow over the next year or so. But yeah, we're on the same mindset really, where we know that we're creating good enough content that when people do find it, they stay. And it's about growing through there. But LinkedIn's always been our priority platform. And I suppose for your audience, it's something that you should probably look at as well.
Yeah, we are posting on LinkedIn, and that's definitely becoming a lot more bigger part of our strategy. I would say over the past few months, we've gone from not really using LinkedIn at all to now, when I open my phone, apart from Instagram, that would be the second app that I'll go to, because I'll find the content on there a lot more interesting than I would on any of the other platforms. And I think the organic reach on there is amazing. So
it's nuts.
Yeah, I think as well, when you look at, so for example, our Graffiti Life Instagram account, I think we've got like 50,000 followers on there, but they're not our clients. They're just people who like the paintings that we make. Whereas on LinkedIn, we're having I've got conversations in my DMs that are directly with people who want to work with us. And I mean, I literally DM'd someone from a very, very big sportswear brand the other day, who, to my amazement, actually got back and we're setting up a meeting. And it's like, that doesn't happen anywhere else. Like, you can just find the person that you want to talk to at whatever brand, and you can drop them a DM. And if you say something interesting, there's a chance they'll get back to you. Yeah,
it's an incredibly exciting platform, and you're right, the reach is nuts.
Yeah,
and you get it right, and it completely pops because the algorithm's so basic. So yeah, I mean, if you've got some time and you want to look at the content strategy, that would be the place that I'd suggest you look at.
Definitely,
it's nuts.
Definitely. I mean, we were saying we were like, we need a mat.
We get that quite a lot. I mean, it's we got incredibly lucky with the team that we found, and we've just had another 2 into that team, so up to 6 people full time that work on the video stuff.
Amazing.
But we create like 9-10 videos a day, so vlog plus other things. And we've gone from like 10,000 people watching our stuff a week to last week 350,000 people watched our stuff a week. Completely organically on
That's
LinkedIn.
Incredible. And I mean, you asked us like what we want to do. Like, we look at guys like you and what you're doing. Like, eventually we want to be vlogging. Like, we need to be able to afford to do that. But like, we want to be we want to do what you guys are doing. And because I think it's the way.
I think it's the way forward. And I think we'll see a lot of people do it in the next 18 months, where they just pick up a camera and go, well, very much are thinking, well, what's the worst going to happen? Like, people don't like it. All right, well, they'll forget about it the next day if we pull it. So.
Yeah, and I think especially from having the podcast, I've really learned how much people just like other people, and having a face to stuff just changes everything.
100%.
It's like the amount of people, it's like the vlog, like you guys, it's like I feel like I know you already.
Yeah.
And
it's so, people always buy people. And we're in I can't get away from both our businesses are sales businesses.
Yeah.
Like, they need clients to win.
I hid behind the logo and the artwork for years. I never wanted to come forward, because you've got to think, I started painting graffiti in 99, and for 10 years I was an illegal graffiti artist, and never, like, no one ever saw my face. They just saw the work that I left behind. And then to step forward was really hard for me, to actually become known as like, oh yeah, I'm behind this, like, this is what I do, this is what I believe in. I found that really hard, and so I have total empathy for people when they get in touch and they're like, I'm scared of making a video or clicking send. I mean, our first day on the podcast, we recorded these episodes and we listened back and we're like, I hate my voice, and Ad's like, I hate my voice, but everyone goes through that. And then when we got an iTunes review that said their voices are so soothing. We were like, oh well, nice. some people like my voice, so fuck it. It's all good.
50% of people are always gonna hate something, and 50% of people are gonna like it. It's got to focus on the 50% that like it, and that 50% grows over time as well.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
And people get influenced by other people. If someone writes that, then people start thinking about that stuff.
Yeah,
no, they do. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's no darker than it was when we set out, which is a positive.
Yeah,
the lighting's all good. But yeah, if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, then check out these guys' podcasts. It's fantastic. You're getting amazing guests, and I'm delighted to see it go from strength to strength.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Yeah, it's called Creative Rebels, and you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube.
Yeah.
Where do you see most people listen to? iTunes,
because that's what we've pushed the most, because when we launched, that was the plan, to get to #1 in the iTunes business chart, so that's what we've focused on. But now
Spotify's healthy. Spotify's coming up.
Yeah, I never really think about Spotify as a podcast.
I think they are going to really be focusing on it coming up. I think
it's great for their long form listenership.
So they've just changed the way their platform works as well. So they've just moved to RSS feeds like iTunes.
Oh, right.
So they don't host any of their own stuff anymore. It's coming from outside. And then I saw today that they're putting a lot of money into paying podcasters to have exclusive podcasts on there.
Right.
Because they want to become known as the podcast platform.
Wicked. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure. And I suggest that everyone goes and checks it out, goes and listens. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, mate.